Just reminds me of Mad Dog 2020. Hi, everyone. If you are watching right now, this is the live recording of the This Week in Science podcast. And everything that you see in this video might be cut out for the podcast. I don't know what I'm going to keep. I do some editing. Snip, snip, snip. Get in there, cut things out, clean it up a little bit. But we will be talking and doing the show for a little while to come. We're here. Do you see us? You see us. We're there. It's time. I got to see your comments in the chat room. There's always a little bit of a delay, just making sure that we are out there. Identity4 says we're live. Anthony says hello. Hello.
Wait, I forgot. I got a question.
You have a question. Okay.
Are we allowed to curse on this?
Don't curse.
Okay.
Or light cursing if it's appropriate.
Okay. I always got to ask.
If you do curse, I will
cut it.
Okay.
Yeah. Sounds good. I know. I'm just like, I know YouTube, you can you can curse after like the first 5 minutes. You can say whatever you want, but the first 5 minutes have to be pretty. I'm just wondering, like what platform.
We're going to be good for the first 5 minutes, 10 minutes. We'll see how long it lasts. No. Yes, we try to be radio show friendly, which is what we aim for. Then there's the after show where we're not doing the podcast anymore, and all bets are off for the after show. Exactly. Is everybody ready for an episode? I think I'm ready. I'm ready to go. I have things set up. It's not Night Attack. No, it's not Shoe Brew, but we are ready to go in a 3, a 2. This is TWIS. This Week in Science, episode number 796, recorded on Wednesday, October 21st, 2020. Would you take the shot? Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Kiki, and today we will fill your head with beetles, bees, and bio. But first, disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. Who knew AOC is a gamer? She played Among Us on Twitch. The stream was so rich, you know that I never would flame her. Because here lies the science, we steer away from MMPORG violence. And though my co-hosts are gone, the show carries on. You know you can always find This Week in Science. Coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind that can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I want to know what's happening. What's happening? What's happening this week in science? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening this week in science?
Good science, everyone. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Science. Back yet again. If you're watching the video, I'm getting hugged by my son, Kai. He's making an appearance.
Hi.
Okay, go to bed.
No.
We have a great show for you ahead. Yes, my co-hosts are taking a leave of absence this week.
What happened?
Blair got married this weekend and is on her married moon.
That's really cool.
It is. Go away. And Justin was on a plane traveling back to America from Denmark. So both of the co-hosts are otherwares at this time, but the show goes on. And tonight we're joined by Dr. Josiah Zayner. He's going to be talking with us about COVID-19 and vaccines and biohacking. Dun, dun, dun.
It's always weird when people call me doctor. I can't get over that. I know, but it's still, I can't get over it. It's like, oh, weird.
Oh, yes.
I'm a doctor.
You are. You are. That's right.
I always forget.
Well, you're going to remind people tonight with all your knowledge. Tonight on the show, I have a bunch of science. We're going to talk about Asteroid, Bennu, bee genes, and happy endings. And we're also going to talk about that biohacking. As we jump into the show, I want to remind you that if you're not subscribed to TWIS yet, you can find us all places podcasts are found. Spotify, Pandora, radio.com, Stitcher, Spreaker, TuneIn, Google, Apple, the big ones, all the places. Look for This Week in Science. You can also find us in video on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. You can find us online at twis.org for more information. Okay. Let's jump into the science. Josiah, if you have any comments on these stories as I run through them, feel free to react,
all right.
respond.
I'm ready.
Okay, you ready?
I'm pumped.
Get
I love
ready
science. I love science. Yeah.
We all do. Yes.
All right.
All right. NASA's OSIRIS-REx mission to asteroid Bennu was successful yesterday. Yay, NASA! After 4 years and 20 million miles, the spacecraft performed a touch-and-go maneuver in which it was on the surface of the asteroid for 16 seconds to collect up to 60 grams of regolith. That's about a candy bar's worth of the surface material on this little asteroid. And the craft has been orbiting Bennu since late 2018, taking images and all sorts of data. But this little touch-and-go maneuver means it's headed back home. Hopefully, it will return to Earth by 2023 with this little sample from a rock that was formed around 10 million years after the birth of our solar system. So very, very, very baby stages of our solar system. This is something that has seen our solar system evolve.
So you think they were aiming for 20 seconds, but only got 16? So they just said, 16 seconds is good enough.
We're going to get in there. You get in, you get the stuff, and you got to run out before the lasers. No, I mean, it sounds like something that was a highly choreographed bank robbery. But
I know, doesn't it? Seriously. 16 seconds. Wow.
Yeah, 16 seconds. They did a couple of rehearsals in the months leading up to this final routine where they'd.
I wonder,
go
that's
up
crazy.
and,
I wonder who played the lander. Do you think they got Morgan Freeman to do it?
With that voice, yes.
He would be like,
narrate the whole time.
I'm landing on the. I'm sorry, it's a very bad joke. Gosh. Like they had to rehearse and pretend like they were all the different things,
Mm-hmm. All right,
Okay.
space.
Anyway.
From space, let's move on to bees. Bees and climate change. You know about killer bees, right, Josiah?
The
you
Wu-Tang Clan, Killer Bees.
Killer bees, yes. Also, if you're a child of the 80s, you're probably really aware of the terrifying spread of Africanized or honeybees or killer bees, right? According to a study out of UC Davis, these bees can't go everywhere that they want to. Apparently, they are limited by climate and unable to survive colder winters, and a genetic analysis of the honeybee genome, the European and African hybrid honeybee genome, over multiple latitudes found fewer genes from the African origin with higher latitudes, suggesting there is a genetic barrier to the bees that's based on climate, which is kind of interesting. I like a climate barrier. I like being in colder winters. I don't know why, but killer bees took my imagination as a child, and I've been terrified of them for my entire life. So living in the Pacific Northwest, this makes me happy.
See, that's the only thing people in the cold got going for them, though. They're like, what do you got in the warm weather? I could do anything any day I want. What do you got in the cold? Well, they protect us from killer bees, I think.
That's right. Now.
That's about it.
The good aspect beside being protected from killer bees up in the north is the positive aspects of the African honeybee genetic lineage. So they have some really interesting behaviors that protect them from hive parasites like the varroa mite, and they're also really aggressive, which is the bad part, but it can be very protective to the hive. So along with other genetic factors, this kind of genetic analysis might be useful down the line in the conservation of honeybees at large against pathogens and against climate change, especially as climate change leads to areas getting warmer in lots of different places. So protecting the bees, it might be helped, which would be good. I like my honey and my flowers. Now, from bees on to beetles. This is the best name of a beetle that I have ever heard of in my entire life. It's a Southern California beetle called the diabolical ironclad beetle.
Somebody went a little too far on that one. They got some trauma or something. Just to let out.
Diabolical ironclad beetle. Yes, diabolical because it fakes being dead. Ironclad because it has really, really strong exoskeleton armor on its back. And a new paper in Nature details the microscopic nature of the materials making up its exoskeleton. This exoskeleton can withstand forces up to 37,000 times the beetle's body weight, which, I mean, it's a little tiny beetle, but if this were the man-sized protective armor, you'd be pushing asteroids away from planet Earth with your protective ability.
Can we go back to the D? I'm a little confused. It's diabolical because it plays dead. I thought it was going to be diabolical because
tricky.
Like it sets bombs for its friends. Plays dead. That's like the least diabolical thing I know.
I'm dead. No, I'm not. Yeah. Like you said, the name is it goes a little far. Whoever named the beetle might have had some issues. Yes.
Come on.
So the elytra, this is the toughened wing covers. So when a beetle flies, its wings they open up and they've been hidden by these hard casing covers that are over the beetle's back. That's called the elytra. And the elytra is the key to the strength. It has up to 10% more protein concentrated in its outer layers, and the structures of the elytra at the midline of the back, they interlock and overlap, like kind of interdigitation, as if you were to put your fingers together. And the structures, when they're folded that way, add to the strength of the structure. And so when you squish the beetle, they all compress, but instead of breaking apart, the compression leads to delamination, and like it just little bits of the laminate of the layers flake away, and it stays strong. It protects the beetle. You can run over these beetles with a car. They will survive. Another aspect, they have rod-like elements called mitotrichia that the scientists think also act as frictional pads, preventing slippage. And the researchers actually went a step beyond just describing the molecular structure of the beetle back. They took the molecular structure and used it to design carbon fiber 3D printed materials that they then used to test against standard aerospace fasteners, and found them completely superior to what we're currently using in their ability to bind dissimilar materials.
Man, it takes a lot to get something published these days, you know?
You got to do everything. We didn't just describe it. We went one step further. We're making new materials. We show them better.
What? Like, what? What is going on?
Yeah.
Back in my day.
So as I was talking about that, I was showing, I have pictures that I would love to show you of this beetle, because this beetle is super his back is super lumpy, and he's just this kind of crusty, lumpy looking beetle. And then you can run over the beetle. They did a test where they actually ran the beetle over, and they found that the beetle just pretends it's dead, and then whoop, there it goes. I'm happy. I can keep on ticking. I'm still going. Look at me. I'm an ironclad beetle. I am diabolical, aren't I? And the layers of these elytra, these wings, they do have multiple layers that seem to be built upon each other, and the way that they interdigitate it's kind of like puzzle pieces that you could imagine locking puzzle pieces together. And they also did some electron microscopy to actually figure out what the back material looks like, so that they could get into that 3D printing. And when you look really close up, the rod-like structures they're fascinating and really pretty. And I don't know. I'm imagining somebody getting like a motorcycle jacket with this kind of a material on the back. Prevents road rash.
Oh, yeah. Good idea. You should start a company.
I could,
Start
right?
right there.
I'll go. I'll take this paper, make a patent. There I go. Moving on from being diabolical, let's talk about your nose. Scientists may have discovered a new organ in your head, behind your nose, or maybe it's just some new salivary glands and not really a new organ, but people really like to speculate on things like this and get everyone excited with headlines like, there's a new organ in your head.
I know. I feel like there's a headline like that like at least once a year.
Yeah. Look, a new organ, a new thing. No, okay. It's basically these are new salivary glands that have slightly different characteristics to your other salivary glands. And they are kind of at the top of your throat, behind your nasal sinus coming out. And the researchers noticed the structures in radiology scans and then did a bunch of further analyses on cadavers. And they found they proposed calling them tubarial glands. Okay, so now we have a new structure in our head called tubarial glands. Okay, they're there. Why are they important? The characteristics that are unique, potentially, one of the issues with radiation for cancer treatment and other treatments is that you lose your sense of smell and your sense of taste. And part of this is because of radiative effects to the salivary glands, and the characteristics of these glands suggest that they could be protected during radiation, which could provide an opportunity to improve quality of life for people. So, not just discovering a new thing that can help. That's always good. Speaking of helping, sanctuary cities around the country have been attacked with the complaint that crime rates are increasing in sanctuary cities because of violent criminals. A research report published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, PNAS, combines Immigration and Customs Enforcement deportation data and Federal Bureau of Investigation crime data with data on the implementation dates of sanctuary policies between 2010 and 2015, and finds that sanctuary policies reduced deportations by 1/3. But the policies do not reduce deportations of people with violent criminal convictions. So people who are committing violent crimes are still getting deported. It's people who are not committing violent crimes and are just here are being deported less often. It finds that sanctuary has no measurable effect on crime and does not threaten public safety. Data, people, data. Use it to your advantage. And then finally, let's have a happy ending, because happy endings are fabulous, don't you know? We all love a happy ending instead of a bad ending. Well, there is a concept in psychology, the recency principle of memory, where you're going to remember things a little bit better the more recently you've heard them. So if you have a list of numbers, you're going to remember the first one, that's primacy, and probably the last one, because that's the most recent. That's recency. Well, that happens also in how we track events and experiences through our lives. And some researchers publishing in the Journal of Neuroscience, using a very small number of only male volunteers, they published their research, their investigation into how two brain areas, the amygdala and anterior insula, are involved in tracking the value of experiences over time, whether they're good or they're bad, positive, negative, and how they influence decision-making. So according to their very small biased sample, they conclude that the amygdala encoded the actual value of a choice. So that's like the real value. So if you're given a whole bunch of, if you're given like, here's a quarter, here's a dime, here's 5 cents, here's a quarter, you're going to be like super excited by the total number, the amount of money that you're getting, the overall amount, as opposed to that last one was a quarter, so I'm just going to think happy about it because I got a quarter. So the anterior insula encoded dislike towards a negative ending. And so if that list of coins ended on 5 cents, you'd be like, cheapskate, if the anterior insula was encoding that, because it would just pay attention to something that wasn't as positive. 5 cents isn't as good as 25 cents. So according to the researchers, they say Good decision makers show a strong representation of the overall value in the amygdala, whereas suboptimal decision makers encode the disappointing end too strongly. So take note of how much the most recent experiences in your life might affect your choices and your opinions. You could just be neurally predisposed to negativity rather than reality. It's possible.
Yeah, it's a good one. I need to start using that one.
Yeah.
I'm just negatively predisposed to was the end parts of my reality.
I'm more predisposed to negativity than reality. There we go. Let's think all those happy thoughts. Then this, as a show producer, it makes me consider the fact that maybe I should always leave the show on a happy note so that people, when they finish listening,
I like that. That's a really good one.
It.
That's a really good one. I like that. Like a happy thought at the end. Let's all sit here and think of the best ice cream that you want to eat right now.
Yes.
And you're just eating it. Oh, and it's so fattening, but you don't care.
Because it tastes so good. Oh, ice cream. Gotta love the ice cream.
Oh, gosh. For me, it's lactose free, but hey.
Same. Very limited in my choices now. Actually,
chocolate, vanilla.
Less limited than I was when I was a kid. So it's better. It's better.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Like you don't
Life
just
is
have,
better.
like orange sherbet or whatever. Do you call it sherbet or sherbet?
What? Sherbet. I don't know. I don't even remember. Sorbet. Let's be French. Sorbet.
Oh, sorbet, yeah.
Yeah. If you just tuned in, you are listening to This Week in Science.
Wait, are sorbet and sherbet the same thing? Sorry, I messed up your thing.
I think so. Except one is fake fruit and one is supposed to be real fruit juice.
Oh, gosh, this is getting complicated.
Timid tenor. Yes, there is such a thing as lactose-free ice cream. If you did not know, now you do. Yes. This is This Week in Science. If you just tuned in, if you are interested in a TWIS shirt or a mug or other item of our merchandise, head over to twis.org and click on our Zazzle store. It'll take you to our Zazzle store where we have mugs and hats and shirts and all sorts of fun things with the TWIS logo and also with Blair animal art all over them. You can get face masks. You can get a tote bag. There are very wonderful things in the Zazzle store, and a portion of the proceeds do go to support TWIS. Additionally, if you are interested in helping to support TWIS, consider clicking that Patreon link while you're at twis.org. Patreon.org is where our supporter community lives, and $10 a month or more, and you will get your name in the list of thank yous at the end of the show. Josiah is one of our sponsors. Thank you.
Oh, for a while now.
Yes.
Years. I love you guys.
Getting there. I love that you love the show. All right, now it's time for us to get into this. Let's get into the conversation.
You and me?
So
you and me?
You, me and you. Yes. Let's have a conversation. Everyone, if you have not previously seen Josiah on TWIS, he has joined us on a couple of occasions to discuss DIY bio with CRISPR, fecal transplants as well. And he's also a global leader in BioHacker. Let me start that over and try and speak clearly. Stumbling. Yes. He is also
I'm also a Chicago Bulls fan.
A Chicago Bulls fan and a global leader in the BioHacker movement. He's a scientist, artist, and founder and CEO of the ODIN, which is a company enabling people in genetic design efforts. Thanks for joining me tonight on the show.
Yeah, no, I always love doing this stuff, like I said, especially after 8 p.m. I can't hear the kids, so I'm wondering if they're asleep, and I'm just like, yes.
Yes, you hope the kids are asleep, or they just
get to hang out.
They run in
have
unexpectedly. No, yeah.
and chat, like, what could be better?
Yeah. and you get to hang out. We can talk about science. I'm going to ask you a whole bunch of questions right now
Oh, geez.
because I got to know things. I have
Favorite
to know
color is
things.
blue.
Okay, that's good. I'll know
Favorite
that
cheese
now.
is blue.
All right.
My favorite hair color was blue also, but yeah. Anyway.
Getting into those details. What else? All right. So you started a project this year after the onset of the pandemic called Project McAfee.
Yeah, I did. You like that?
The name, I saw that and I laughed. I lolled.
I know. I feel like enough people didn't really get that. And I'm super disappointed, right? Because we were working on a vaccine for the coronavirus.
Yes.
And John McAfee is like a crazy antivirus guy. And this was kind of like a crazy antivirus thing. And I was just like, no, nothing. Oh, gosh.
Nothing. Nobody gave you a response.
I ever heard like one, like nobody. And that's why I do these things, right? That's why I do the crazy science, art, crazy projects I do, is just because, like, I want somebody to laugh. That's it, you know?
Mm-hmm. So I'm happy. Well, you made me laugh. It worked for me. So, yes, antivirus vaccine. I love the comparison. But, okay, making a DIY vaccine for COVID-19. Why did you want to do that?
Yeah, that sounds crazy, right? Initially, I didn't. You know, when this whole pandemic thing started, I was just like, put your head down, keep working. Because I run a small business, my company, the ODIN, and you know, we had to let people go. The pandemic affected us and everything, and I was like, you know what? Just put your head down, keep working on the stuff that's, you know, gonna help the longevity of the company in your life and stuff. Don't focus on the short term. Yeah, don't focus on the short term. Like, oh, this coronavirus thing's happening. Let me try to make a quick buck. And a lot of people have, and there are a lot of people who have made a quick buck. And people just jump in and are like, oh, I made a test that could be test coronavirus in 10 minutes. Oh, I made one for 9 minutes. Oh, mine's in 7 minutes. You know, it's like, and I get it, you know, there's a place for that to help people, but I think there's also a place for that to just be like a bunch of low quality stuff that doesn't contribute much to society. So yeah, I just kept my head down, and then I saw this paper. It was funny because it wasn't really in the press at all, which that was probably the most surprising thing to me, was that it wasn't in the press. And it was published on like May 20th, 2020, May 22nd or something like that, in
so early.
Science magazine, if I'm remembering correctly. Okay. And what they did was they used a DNA vaccine in macaques, non-human primates, and they gave it the vaccine, and then they gave it a challenge of COVID-19. And what happened was that the monkeys who got the vaccine, they had greater survivability, and the virus didn't affect them as much and everything like that compared to the monkeys who didn't receive any vaccine. And I was like, that's super cool, because like the best preclinical data you can get is basically non-human primates, right? Like most people just have mouse data or something, right? And then they go to humans. This was like non-human primate. This is like, you know,
that's close. I mean, it's like, it should work.
Yeah, it's, you know, nobody does experiments on gorillas really, so you're not really going to get like the primate, like, you know, level or whatever. It's all just like these monkeys, but still, it's it blew my mind that nobody was working on it. And I was just like, why is nobody talking about this? Why is nobody working on this? You can literally just take this data, inject it in humans, and see what happens. Why is nobody doing that? And I just wanted to do it. I just felt really inspired. You know, like half of my motivation is science, because there's this great unknown and I want to see what's out there, because, you know, like nobody's seen it. And I just want to see.
Yeah.
And the other is just because I'm inspired. You know, I just want to do it. It's just like, that sounds cool. I want to try that out. And so I contacted a couple friends of mine, David Ishii and Daria Danceva, and I said, hey, you guys are you interested in trying this out with me? And like, let's see if we can inject ourselves with the same vaccine that they made for the monkeys, and if it works in us, and we could try to measure all these different parameters and see what happens. It was really exciting to really do something of this scale. I didn't personally, I have never really done such advanced biomedical testing. I did the microbiome transplant.
Right.
I did a bunch of sequencing on my body, but this was like blood tests and all this other stuff. It was more invasive and stuff.
Right, because you have to be able to measure all of the antibodies, and you have to be able to measure whether or not it's actually doing anything to your immune system, whether there's any change, right?
Yeah, that's what you'd hope, right? Like,
yeah.
That was the goal, is just to see what happens. And honestly, even from the beginning, I've just expected this whole thing to fail because science is hard.
Yeah.
And like, usually the first time you do something, you're just winging it and you're just hoping for success. And sometimes you hit, sometimes you miss, but it teaches you something usually that you can use for the future. So usually I just go for it. I'm like, let's do this the exact same way they did it in the paper and we measured our antibodies so what the vaccine actually was it was a piece of DNA that encoded the coronavirus spike protein.
Okay.
And the spike protein is the thing, it binds the ACE2 receptor and it helps the virus get into the cell, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so if you can get an antibody to the spike protein, you stop it from binding this receptor and basically getting into the cell. So that's what a lot of drug companies are targeting in their vaccines.
And so that's what they had. They had the sequence of DNA for that spike sequence. And so did you order that, or did you isolate it? How did you get that sequence of DNA?
No. So at this time in May, the NCBI, the National Center for Bioinformatics or something like that.
Yeah.
The sequences were deposited in there.
Okay.
And available to everybody. So we took the sequence, we did the same thing as they did. We, human codon optimized it so we would have a better question to express in human cells and to put it in the same vector that they used. And, ordered it from a company to be manufactured on a large scale.
So you could have a big enough dose that you could actually inject it and think that it would have an effect.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the big thing. That was a big unknown also, because it's a big unknown in all these things. Like the first study you do, basically, besides safety in a clinical trial, is dose dependence, right? Mm-hmm. Like how much do you need to actually see an effect? And we didn't really have that luxury because we were just 3 people, and like doing some dose dependent study would be tough. So we were just like, the monkeys did 10 milligrams, and generally vaccines don't scale by body weight necessarily, right? Generally, if you go to get a vaccine, you'll get the same dose independent of your body weight. So we just kind of went for it, in hopes that maybe it would work out.
So I'm just thinking that there is so much vaccine hesitancy right now, and that people who don't trust vaccines because of possible adverse effects. And did that thought ever go through your head of like, oh, what if because of this I trigger an inflammatory response or like an extreme immune reaction? Did you think about that in terms of the vaccine injection?
Oh, totally, 100%. My daughter, she got a flu shot last year, and she had a really bad reaction to it. Like,
oh wow,
her flesh was like bubbling, and it was a crazy. I didn't even know vaccines could do it. I was just like, what is going on here? This seems like some crazy movie, where you see somebody gets infected and their like skin starts bubbling and stuff. It was gross. Yeah,
when you see that in your like 2-year-old, you're just like, oh god,
like what is going on? But like I'm science and medical minded, so I understand. There's certain things you check for, fever, other things. If they don't have that, it's just like talk to the doctor, make sure they're aware of it. But otherwise, there's not much you can do. Just let the immune system do its thing, and win out in the end. but yeah, totally aware of this stuff. And it definitely was something that I think about in all these things. I always think about the risk to myself and the risk to others, the risk that me doing this will present to others. Maybe they'll try to copy me and stuff like that. And yeah, I don't want to be a martyr or anything like that. That's never my goal. So it is something I think about for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, you did this whole process, though, the three of you live streamed, you had your Sunday broadcasts, and you did the experiment totally transparently in front of an audience of other biohackers and interested people. What kind of responses did you get from people, and like also what kind of input did the community have input into your experiment that you took into account?
Yeah, so I totally live and die by the whole give a person a fish and you feed them for a day, and teach somebody to fish and you feed them for a lifetime. And I think right now there's this huge divide. You went to graduate school, you got a PhD also, and there's this huge divide in science between those who have the knowledge and those who don't, and we're placed on different pedestals and all this stuff. But the gap is a lot smaller than I think a lot of us PhDs, MDs want to think. We invested a lot of time for sure, but I think that there are quicker and faster ways to invest your time and faster ways to learn and progress. And, people can do this stuff no matter what. People of all skill levels and diversities can figure out how to do this stuff and learn how to do it. Yeah. And so that was our goal from the beginning, just to show people this process and what we went through and like how science works and what an ELISA tested. Because you go for coronavirus and you go get your antibodies tested at ELISA, like you don't even know what's going. Like, what is that? What does that even mean?
Yeah.
And we actually wanted to show people like what that test involved and like, the possible errors in the measurement and like what happens when you do this measurement, how accurate it is. Because, you go to the FDA website and stuff like some of these antibody tests are like not very accurate. No, not the best method. And,
there's a lot of conversation about what the type 1 and the type 2 errors, right? False negatives, false positives, and, especially the PCR tests that are maybe a little bit longer to get the results back. They're usually pretty accurate for the positive, but those false negatives, if you get if you're negative, you could be positive. You don't know. Yeah. Like the the whole situation is just a mess. But yeah, to be able to understand how the tests work is so helpful.
Yeah, it really is. Then because some people come from this premise that people in society in the world are dumb, so we have to, synthesize things for them and sugarcoat things for them and all these other things. But I think the problem is that people just haven't been given the opportunity to learn because we just hide it from them, right? We use language that just hides it from people, blah, 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 blah. And instead of just being like, hey, look, here it is, look at it, judge it. Like, I want you to judge this because I think you're capable of judging it.
Yeah, and that's why there's like a huge political backlash about masks right now, because in the very beginning they said, "Oh, don't wear masks. Masks aren't good." When really all they wanted to do was preserve the N95 supply for healthcare workers. And if they had just said that, it could have. I mean, who knows how it would have worked out? Who knows whether or not it would have ended up in a with people taking advantage of it and making money off of it. But at the same time, I don't think we would have had as many people as angry as we do now if we just told the truth.
Yeah, a lot of it, is just really complicated. And I think the problem is we try to pretend like it's not.
Yeah.
Scientists, because people want scientists just to have the answers. And scientists fall into that trap. Every one of them does. All of us do, where, we want to have the answers.
I know things.
Yeah, exactly.
I know things.
We want to have the answers. I have the answer. Let me know. When sometimes it's, not much more reliable than just a guess. And I think it's okay to be honest with people about some of these things, and let people know, and then they trust science more. It's like one of the biggest reactions we got out of this experiment, teaching people how to, we went from straight up from how do you code the DNA, right, to how you test expression in human cells, to how do you measure, draw your own blood and measure your own antibody levels and do ELISAs and all this stuff, step by step through this whole process. And one of the biggest response we got was like, I would take that vaccine. Like, if you were providing that vaccine, I'd take it. And you're like, wow, like even people who would be like staunchly against vaccines. I've taken no vaccine, so many times, like I've taken no vaccines in my life, but I would take this vaccine if you offered
because you showed them how the whole process worked.
And I think that's a problem with our biopharmaceutical industry. It's so like black box, they don't even have to publish their clinical data and stuff, and it's just like it obviously it protects them, stock market and monetarily wise and all these other things, but like
it's that money issue that's a problem.
That's the thing, is that like the people are anti-vax for sure, and maybe you had somebody in your family die, whatever, who knows, but like if you just have it all up front and you're just like, this is all of it, everything we have, there might be some people are like, you're still hiding something,
right?
But generally, if I could go and look through all that and look at it and be like, okay, that actually looks pretty good, that drug, like, wow, that was pretty good, like just a normal, like it's gonna convince way more people, I think, just being open and honest.
Yeah, there's actually a study that just came out this week in Nature. They're they did a global survey of potential acceptance of a COVID-19 vaccine, and it was totally related to if they had higher levels of trust in information from the government, then they were more likely to take a vaccine. So it's really interesting. Like in China, it's like a super high percentage of individuals said they would totally take a vaccine. And then it was less than 55% in Russia. And in Russia, additionally, they were even less likely to take a vaccine if their employer was telling them to. So if it was like mandated, no, I do not trust you.
Oh, God. People know what's going on.
They know what's going on. Yeah. Yeah, so you're right. It's trust, and it's how much information people have. I mean, there's lots of different ways for it to work. So you planned on testing it on yourself the whole time. But this whole process, it seems like, I mean, aside from being processes that you had not necessarily done in terms of the blood sampling and the antibodies and that kind of stuff, I mean, it doesn't sound like it was hard to do. Or was it hard? I mean, was it a difficult thing?
No, it was it's all these things are hard for me to say because I have done a lot of these things before, like I've done ELISAs in graduate school or whatever, and made my own ELISAs, whatever, all this stuff. Yeah. So for me, none of the process was necessarily new, but I imagine extremely foreign to a lot of other people. But the process is still, science is not necessarily hard physically in terms of like me getting the supplies and doing the thing, right? Mm-hmm. If I have the knowledge and everything like that. What is really hard is it's just complicated. And going into it, with most first time you go into a project, you probably don't understand how complicated it is, no matter what it is, engineering, science, home improvement. Like you're like, all right, I'm just gonna go. I can see this. I'm gonna go do this, and then you're like, oh,
I didn't know how complicated walls were. No,
yeah, exactly. I need that thing. I need that. You're just like, oh my gosh, I need all these. Like, whoa. And I think in terms of that, like, especially with the coronavirus, I think one of the problems we're getting into right now is that human biology is so complicated. And we're getting too much into like comparing country to country instead of just trying to figure things out and do stuff or do something, right? And everybody's comparing themselves to everybody else, and they're like, oh, look, France is this bad, and Italy is this bad, and Sweden is this good or bad, and whatever.
Right.
And you're just like, you know what? Like, human beings are so complicated. The culture can affect how the virus spreads, the environment, the people, the genetics. So much stuff can affect how this spreads. And instead of just like, let's figure it out here, we're comparing ourselves. And that's one thing we really saw, was that like human beings are complex. When I went to LabCorp, which is a professional testing company, and got my antibodies tested. And they came back as negative for coronavirus before this experiment started. And when I started doing the ELISAs, my serum, like all my serum samples had background antibodies. I don't know what to. I don't know if I had coronavirus in the past, right? It's really hard to tell those things. I would have to like get the antibodies and sequence the antibodies or some crazy stuff to try to figure out.
And how specific were those antibodies? Were they specific to the SARS-CoV-2? Or were they specific to another coronavirus, like generally?
Exactly. So the ELISA we were doing was to the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein.
Okay, yeah.
But that doesn't mean it couldn't have bound a similar spike protein from a related virus and just be able to bind to the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein with lower affinity. We also tested like viral neutralization. So could it block the spike protein from binding to the ACE2 receptor? And these background antibodies didn't do that. So it most likely maybe was from some other virus, but it was also just really interesting that like some virus that I've gotten sometime in my life that I don't know when has generated these antibodies to me that like give a positive test on this ELISA. And you're just like, wow, like biology is really hard and complex.
Yeah, I mean, that's when I think about a vaccine effort and all the different vaccines, and the fact that companies have been trying to make a coronavirus vaccine forever. Yeah. We don't have one.
Sure.
We do not have one.
I think it's someone like 2006, the HWO said like, people need to work on coronavirus vaccines. Like, people have been thinking about it for a while.
Yeah, and the original SARS, and then there was MERS, and they started vaccine efforts on SARS, and then that petered out because we did a great job on public health and controlling it and not letting it get out of control, and then money ran out, and there was no money for anyone to do a vaccine, and so it's like dying in a little backwater swamp of science land, right? And not funded, not given anything to. And, people
all the money's
started
going towards CRISPR research right now.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And then SARS-CoV-2 showed up and everyone went, oh, what happened to those SARS vaccines? Where'd those go? Can you pull those out of the freezer? Who's working on that?
Yeah, I looked it up. There was like a couple places in Iran. Because it's actually coronavirus is a thing in the Middle East, apparently. Yeah. Like more common, it happens more commonly.
That's where MERS got it emerged.
Yeah, so, there was a thing there, but like, that's it. And, it's not necessarily like the hotbed of biotech development in the world.
Right. But there is that complexity that's involved. So did it work when you injected yourself? I mean, you said you had this low-level antibody background. Like, what can you say happened?
Yeah, so, that's where it gets complicated. I mean, the simple answer is we all had an immune response to the vaccine, which was really interesting and cool, super cool. But the complicated answer is it's way more complicated than that. And that's because there are a lot of things that lead towards, I don't want to say immunity because vaccines don't necessarily a vaccine providing protection for a person. And obviously one of the hardest to test is actually a live challenge, right? Which you don't really want to do in humans or anything like that necessarily. So the other things you can only really test are test it in a live virus, in, a live virus system, probably in cell culture or something like that, to see if it can block the live virus from replicating. Which is like, I'm not going to get a live virus and be able to do that once. That one's out the door.
Yeah, no, not doing that in my garage. Right? Yeah.
Exactly. And so the other
You can
one,
find somebody who's COVID positive, get them to spit in a vial for you, and there you go.
That one friend you always know is always coughing, and you're like,
no,
hey, buddy.
No.
But yeah, the other ones are, which they did in the paper, they call a viral neutralization assay, where you're just testing if that protein that binds to the human receptor, you can block that from binding. And so, we were kind of limited in the stuff we could test, but we could have a surrogate test for viral neutralization, and we could test antibody levels. And in those two regards, we did see an immune response in, all three of us, which was really interesting. But it was more complicated. When you start talking about like antibody titers, how high were the titers, and how does that compare to all this other different stuff? And some of the titers were low. And you just start realizing that like, it's complicated. And, if you're going to mass produce a vaccine of this type, you probably need 30,000 people to try to average out all these, idiosyncrasies in human beings.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the big aspects of why we do these massive clinical trials when you get to phase 3, late phase 2, phase 3, because you have to take people's physiology, unique physiology into account and kind of figure out, okay, who are the people who either maybe should never get this vaccine or, what is the reactive immunotype? Like what happens there?
Yeah, it's interesting, because if you're looking at it from a perspective of an individual outcome, which the FDA doesn't really cover. Like if I have a disease or illness and I'm trying to help myself, just myself, nobody else, it looks really interesting because you're like, we are capable on some scale of creating some drug that will affect our body, our immune system or something like that, right? And if, say, I'm dying of a disease that there's no treatment for, it is possible, maybe perhaps, that I could follow a scientific study and apply it to myself, which speeds up the level of drug development astronomically. Now, am I recommending people do that? No, but this kind of proof of concept just kind of blew my mind in that way, that like, wow, damn, that worked. Like,
yeah, the fact that you were able to take this bit of DNA from the study and basically follow the instructions, follow the scientific cookbook, and it worked. You had a biological reaction. Yeah.
Yeah, it's scary, because it's like, what does that mean? That's always the scariest question, right?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
What does it mean? But where does it go? What can you, and in science, what does an N of 1, or, for the three of you, an N of 3, your sample size being, what does that actually say versus?
Yeah, no, like, what does it say for us? For us, it's, we're not recommending anybody take this vaccine or try to protect themselves from coronavirus with it. Obviously, I don't know if it works. I'm not going to test myself or something like that. Don't do that. But you are capable of doing advanced biomedical research. Like if I'm capable, if David, who he works in the oil fields in rural Mississippi, and he works in his shed. He doesn't even have a high school diploma.
Yeah.
If he can do it, and Daria, who's in the Ukraine, where she has a more advanced lab than her universities, like
I've met David. He is brilliant.
He is really brilliant.
He is brilliant. Yeah. So not knowing exactly, it did something. What would in terms of this kind of thing, I think I see something like this and it immediately makes me think of all the science fiction movies and television I've watched where, oh, this person has this disease, go to the lab and isolate the genetic mutation and we will fix it. We will come up with a vaccine or a treatment.
They only do it in like an hour or something.
Yeah, it takes an hour and they're done. But I feel like, and they're, on some crazy planet that has no resources and they're in, a bubble tent or something with just what they crashed to the planet with, or, maybe they're an advanced futuristic lab, but usually they're not in these sci-fi programs. And it kind of makes me feel like, okay, somebody there, they call them the doctor maybe, or they're just somebody who has information and becomes the scientist, becomes the doctor and fixes it for someone. And is this going to happen? Is this our future?
I hope so. But really what I hope is that, I always say that, like, if the zombie apocalypse happens, there's going to be a lot of people who would die from the zombies, and there's going to be a whole bunch of diabetics who die, like, within the week or month afterward. Because, like, we are so dependent on pharmaceutical companies and the government and all these places for all of our medicines and biologics and stuff like that. And it's great. They can manufacture stuff to great purity and provide it to us, and it's
consistent too, because it usually, if you're getting it from a good a pharmaceutical manufacturing source and not some crazy weird lab out of, some field in India or something.
100%.
Yeah, you're going to be getting consistent quality, which is going to be safer as well.
Yeah, totally. And it's just like, but like, what if that system breaks down? Yeah. I'm not saying it is, but if you look at this pandemic, especially, a lot of things broke down, right?
Yep.
And
much.
Yeah, and it could leave a lot of people in very vulnerable positions. And again, I'm not saying that, like, I want people to produce drugs and inject themselves with stuff. I want knowledgeable people to do stuff that they can really contribute with. That's the difference. I want knowledgeable people to do it. Like, injecting yourself with something because I did it or somebody else did it or because you want to be cool or something, like, we're better than that as a species. We're better than that as human beings. We can do stuff very thoughtfully. Yeah. And I think trying to get independence in some way like that, medical independence, you can get a generator to back up your house if the power goes out or something like that. You can have a garden to have food and things like that. But the way modern medicine is right now, if you get a cut and you can't go to the doctor and get antibiotics, you could die. And like, antibiotics are dirt cheap all over the world. Like, there's this thin line between us, the system failure, and like, in the medical system struggling.
And a lot of death because that crumbles. Yeah.
So, it's this whole thing of like providing people with the means to help themselves if they need to help themselves. In general, we're pretty good as a society right now, right? Mm-hmm. Don't go and make your own insulin. Like, if you need money, talk to me, talk to Kiki, talk to somebody, I'll help you do the best I can to help you get insulin or something like that. Right. You don't try to make it yourself. There are ways you can get it that are really good that'll help you. But like, in the chance that there's not, or in the chance that maybe you do live in a country like India or something like that, and there's no way to easily get it and there's no way to easily manufacture it, like, what if? And I like to provide things and knowledge in case of those instances, just like, let's bring people the power back so they have that knowledge just in case. What if?
Yeah, get rid of the fewer black boxes that there are, and the more that we understand, the more that we'll be able to continue forward. And it's funny, I ran across some article, or someone sent me an article earlier this week about a biohacker who, and it wasn't biohacking in the sense of hacking DNA and biology, cellular, and in a laboratory. It was, people who put butter in their coffee and hack their
I've
physiology.
never tried that. Have you tried butter in your coffee yet?
I am never going to put butter in my coffee. I just, no.
I've never tried it either. But now, actually, if I think about it, I'm kind of curious. No, it's probably just like this layer of oil on your lips, right?
No.
Because the butter probably just melts and separates the oil on top, and you just got this like thick layer of oil. Like, ugh.
Yeah, but so there's, the different uses of biohacking as in hacking, but I feel like the biohacking that the community you work with does is very similar to computer hacking. And right now we've got all these devices that, you touch the touch screen and it does its thing, or it makes your house warm, or, Siri says something to you, or you say, "Hey Siri," and Siri gives you all the answers to your homework. And you have no idea how it works.
No.
There's no Radio Shack anymore. There's no, there are these, we're missing a whole chunk of technology because things have made a jump forward. But that doesn't have to be the case in terms of science and medicine and health. And I appreciate the fact that you're trying to keep that knowledge external to people who can pay for college.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the big thing is that, I never should have gone to get a P. Like, my life trajectory is one of those ones that I think is just like, 1 in a billion or something like that. I never, I grew up dirt poor on a farm in Indiana, extreme level of poverty, right? We ate eggs from our chickens and drank dehydrated milk, like, we weren't.
This was my childhood as well. Yeah.
And, to move from that to end up going and getting my PhD or something like that. And, even at my PhD, being around people who, as simple as their parents weren't divorced or not divorced twice, and they had certain luxuries in life that I was never exposed to or experienced at all.
Yeah.
And it really opened my eyes to that. Like, wow, like I don't think I won the genetic lottery or anything, and I'm like extra smart. I really don't. My greatest attribute I could probably say is that I can work hard when I need to, but that's about it. And I imagine that there's a lot of other people who can work hard, but didn't have a lot of opportunities that would be really great at science, just like me. Because I grew up with these people and I know them. And, some of them, like David, are brilliant. And it's just like, what if these people had the opportunity? Like, what would they create? And that's the coolest thing, because these people aren't encumbered by a system that you and I
got trained into.
Yeah, got trained in.
Yeah.
They're not encumbered by any of those thoughts and things we were taught and everything like that. They are just free to do whatever they want for the sake of it and never worry about anything. And it's just like, that can't do anything but, I think, benefit science.
Yeah. I mean, at some point, people within the academic infrastructure will have to take notice of things that are happening in the biohacking community, and maybe change the way they do things as a result.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, two things I have to say. One is there's only about 250,000 biomedical PhDs. I looked this up and I did a bunch of research on this, and I wrote an article on my blog about it. There's about 250,000 research PhDs, I think, in the US that are actively employed in like research positions, right? And you're like, so if you can train 250,000 people to be at the level of a PhD or working at that level, like, you already have the majority population, right? And if you add in, people with master's degrees and bachelor's degrees, I think it's closer to 1 million total people that have bachelor's degrees or higher who are working in science. And you're like 1 million people. I mean, 1 million people is a lot, don't get me wrong, but if you're just talking about normal people all over the world, or just even in the US, right? If you can convince 1 million people to do science and double the population of people actually doing science in the US, like hands-on research science, people,
how much more could happen?
People can't help but take note. Like, to me, it's just like a when, because like I see these people who are doing this stuff, human cell culture and all these things, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I could never imagine that this would take place. And you're just like, it's only a matter of time before these people outnumber in size and buying power and everything academic science. And then I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be weird, I bet. But it happened in computer science, right? It happened in computer science. It's happened in a lot of fields where it's just like, it totally shifts, where it's like, this is a really good skill and it's really useful. And now most computer scientists don't work in academia. The large majority don't, right?
Right.
Like if you're a brilliant computer scientist, you go to Google or something,
Someplace where you can actually make money. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens because, biology is a lot different than computers for sure. Mm-hmm. But I see enough similarities that I think we're going to eventually start to see that shift towards like science is changing. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter if I like it or don't like it or agree with it or not. How is this change going to affect me? What is this change going to be? All these things. And I'm really excited for that. Like, I don't know. I don't even know, but I'm really excited for it.
I remember the conference in Vegas that you threw and invited me to come speak at. I was really
supposed to be this year. Our coronavirus killed it. Oh man, that was crazy.
No, virus has killed many things this year.
And we were going to be at the. We moved to a hotel on the Strip, and we were set up. It was going to be awesome. Rented out a bar for like a night. It was going to be crazy.
That would have been amazing. But I was really taken by the community of people and starting to see there seemed to be various factions among the community, which was interesting. There was very much the kind of biopunk factions who are pushing the edge of things, and then there's people who may have been there but just starting to go toward more looking at possibly taking their garage experiments and turning them into companies or seeing if they could take them and do something with them. And then there were people coming from academia and industry and coming in, and they're like, oh yeah, I do biohacking in my garage on the weekends. It's like I leave the lab to go to my lab. And so that was just fascinating to see all these different types of people coming together and working together
and fighting sometimes.
And definitely fighting. Yeah, that was.
That's how you know it's a good conference.
That's healthy. Yeah.
I remember as a scientist, one of the first conferences I went to was this Gordon conference.
I love Gordon conferences. Yes.
Yeah, they're amazing. Yeah. And all everybody did, it was on something really dumb also. Type 3 secretion systems. Well, no, it was on like bacterial, cell-to-cell interactions or something like that. But the main discussion was type 3 secretion systems, which is like, bacteria have these giant pili that they like stick in other bacteria, and they can transfer genetic information and all this other stuff. These people were like yelling at each other all this stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, this is crazy. Like they're going crazy over type 3 secretion systems. Like,
well, when you're passionate, gotta let it out.
So since then, I've always known that like it's not a good conference unless there's people yelling at each other. The more insignificant, the better, you know.
It was great. I really enjoyed getting to hang out with everybody and getting to meet so many people who are everybody working on so many different kinds of things. I mean, okay, you go to Twitter and people are like, biohacking, that's like, putting butter in your coffee. But, people here, there's you're biohacking, you're doing bacteria art or yeast art. And there are people who are doing that. And then you're making bacteria or yeast glow. And then there's going from there. I saw that you're going to be moving on to a project developing chicken meat for eating.
We do genetic engineering. We're always trying to push into new things and do new crazy things. Just because that's what interests me. And there's so many. Here's the thing: is like science has always been. You do this thing, you publish a paper or whatever. You spread the scientific information, and sometimes I get a lot of criticism. Not sometimes, all the time. I'm gonna be honest here right now.
You're like, I always get criticism. No.
About how people are like, oh, you do it for the attention, you do it for the press and all this stuff. Which no matter how hard you try to convince people, you don't like press and attention. It doesn't work, so it doesn't matter. But I'm like, why can't science be about that? Like, why can't science be whatever it wants to be? If I want to be very dramatic in the way I do science, why can't science be dramatic? If I want to be funny and stupid in the way I do science, why can't it be that? Like, people have pigeonholed science to this thing it's supposed to be. And I just have started asking the question, why does that have to be science? Why does what you say have to be science have to be science? Like, why can't I just do science whatever way I want? If I want to live stream it and be ridiculous and set it to dubstep or whatever, not that I necessarily have, maybe once.
Maybe one time, just that once.
It gets to you. Boo, 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 boo.
It helps the pipetting rhythm. It's fine. It's great.
But science should be able to be that. And that's what I think is amazing, right? Is that science can just be an expression of yourself, however you want it to be, whatever you want it to be. And that just led me to explore a lot of different things, like, trying to grow animal meat in a petri dish. There are a lot of companies that do this, or that are trying to do this, and it's, becoming a popular thing. And I'm just like, well, why can't I do it? Why can't other people do it? What's stopping us from trying? And I want to taste chicken meat that's grown in a petri dish. Like, I don't know. Why not? Let me see and let me do and let me try and let me have a good time doing it. That's I think the main thing is that science should just be fun, enjoyable. We're all brought up that like science is so boring. Yeah. Oh my gosh, pH meters and stuff. What do they make you calculate? Like all this
titrations. So many titrations.
Remember in like undergrad chemistry when they made you do like electron equations and stuff? Like, who uses that? I don't even know.
But it's part of the process. You must know these things to understand the concept. Yes.
I don't even know, like...
in the educational system, I think there's a lot that I don't know. Yeah, it just kicks the fun right out of it, and it just
how do you deal with that with
memorization and
how do you deal with that with Kai? Like, my kid's only 2.5 and I'm trying to figure stuff out, but like, how do you like school? Like, I just haven't figured it out yet.
I'm in the middle of it, and I'm still.
Oh yeah, you're teaching, right? Well, I mean, that's good.
It's a whole thing, yeah. But I think it's I think he's learning a lot more. Like, in so many things that conversations we have with him,
I
and
know, right?
the interactions that we have. And okay, here I'll be like, I have to use math right now, Kai. I'm using multiplication to figure this out, and he'll be like, oh, all right, and so I can kind of let him know when certain things are useful, so that he knows it's useful to learn it at least. Part of it though, there's definitely you just have to do the work and become a hard
there's
worker.
a rote part of just like learning stuff.
I mean, some learning is just, you just have to put your head down and just do it. There's no shortcut. You just
you only learn the
it.
alphabet by saying it 1,000 times. Oh my God, let me tell you.
How many times?
Oh gosh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. But then
Except
you start getting into.
We really need to get rid of fractions. If I ever ran as a politician, my first thing would be like, we're outlawing fractions. Like, you don't need fractions. Just give me the decimal place.
Give me the decimal.
I don't even know why we use it. Like, what's 3/7 plus 4/8? I don't know. Just give me the decimal point. I can add it up really easy. Like, I don't get it. I don't know how to.
Yep.
I don't even know what you do anymore. Like, I don't remember. How do you add fractions? I don't know. Is there
I have not had. I think my son starts fractions this year, and I am terrified.
It don't even make any sense. Outlaw fractions.
No, fractions for cooking. I've got fractions for cooking. That's about it. But then you just go to not American standards,
I know, right?
And you just use a scale, a kitchen scale, and it's all ounces.
Oh gosh.
It's scientific.
I hate these things. I hate like teaspoons and stuff. I'm just like, it's so complicated. Why don't we just do grams of everything?
Just do grams. That's right. Grams
ounces, and milligrams of everything. Like, teaspoon. I don't even know what that is. I don't even.
Identity 4 in the chat room says fractions for our stupid inch things. That's right. Inches.
Exactly. For our stupid inch things. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Don't even start.
There's too much fun there.
I spent like half of my life trying to teach myself the opposite, the metric system, so that
that you never have a spacecraft go missing on Mars.
It's just always the conversion. You're just like, it's like what, 2.54 centimeters per inch, and like 2.2 kilograms per pound, and like. Fahrenheit to Celsius is always
that one's
tough.
the rough one. Yeah.
So you have to have like, I generally just have a couple points. So like 25C is like 76 or something, 75, and 37C is 98.6, right? And 30C,
which is very useful for doing body temperature water baths.
Yeah, and 30C is like less than that. So you're just like pretty much set, right? If you're like, it's cold outside, you're just like, well, is it freezing? If it's below freezing, then you say, negative. If it's above freezing, you're just like, it feels like it's 5C outside or something. Like, nobody knows the difference.
At least not here.
And if it's warm, if it's really hot, you can say like 37. But if it's not really hot, you're just like, it's like 30C outside or something, right? I'm covered. You got like 4 Celsius temperatures you memorize, you're just set.
You're good forever. We don't have to convert. Oh my God. Going back to your vaccine project.
Oof, all right.
Jumping backwards in time.
I love it.
Yes. Going back in time. How do you think a project like yours affects trust in vaccines overall? Do you think it helps?
All I've heard is like positive stuff. We're literally like taking a vaccine. I remember on one of the streams we did, somebody was like, we were talking about vaccines and how vaccines can be dangerous and stuff like that, and we have to understand that and take that into account. And somebody is like, you sound like you're anti-vax or something like that. And we're like, we're literally taking a vaccine live. Like here, like I don't think we would be more opposite of anti-vax for you,
Yeah.
And no, I think it really helped people understand the process of this stuff and how it goes on. And then use that information to judge things. That's my favorite thing. It's like, if you want to be anti-vaccine, anti-GMO, anti all these things,
have all the information.
Exactly. If you have all the knowledge and information, then like, all right, because that's all you can hope that somebody has, that they're judging it on the knowledge, complete knowledge and information. You can't do anything else otherwise, right? It's like, that's all I can give you. I can give you all the knowledge and information on this, and then it's your decision to make after that. I can't force you to do it. I can't, do anything. Then it's up to you. And I think that's what it is. It's giving that knowledge and information to people so that they can make a informed decision. Yeah.
When you did your CRISPR injection, you later said, maybe I shouldn't have done that like that. Do you have the same feeling about this vaccine trial, or are you glad you did it, or would you do it again?
No, I'm 100%. It's like, it's weird, and I'm sure you've experienced it over the years. It's like there was a point in time where you could tweet something and you got no response, and you just like tweet something. This is into the void.
Yeah, nobody sees it. Nobody responds. Yeah.
And you're just like, oh gosh, why do I even do this? And then, after you start building up, your podcast and all this other stuff, or whatever you work on. For me, it's the science stuff I do. Then more people start responding, and you get like this audience, this interaction that you didn't have before. And for me, that was pretty abrupt.
Yeah. It happened very quickly.
With that CRISPR thing, it went from like nothing to like a lot really fast, of people interacting with me. And I didn't expect that. I wasn't, how could anybody predict that or think about that? It's really tough unless you experience it. It's really tough to like look ahead and be like, oh yeah, if I do this thing and I accidentally, a bunch of people write articles about it, it's going to affect some people. Like, I'm used to nobody like at all responding to me ever. Just like, yeah, you post something on Facebook and you get like, 3 likes or something.
Yeah.
And it was after I did that CRISPR injection, it was, wow, for me, it was such a interesting, so much went into it, thought and just like inspiration and emotion and everything. And it affected a lot of people, and I did not expect that. I did not expect so many people to be influenced, affected, other people to try similar things, people just to respond negatively. And it really, it really changed me a lot, because I realized that like, oh gosh, now if I say things, it affects people. Like people are listening to me, whereas before they weren't. And that's really a hard thing to come to grips with. Because they're like, I don't like, what do I gotta say? Why are you listening to me? What do I gotta say? Like, I don't know.
And those things that were just maybe flippant comments, or just like you're just like throwing off a comment, what suddenly it's something that somebody takes seriously.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are just like,
different.
Wow. And you're just like, no, like, I'm just a normal person also. Like, I'm just completely normal. And, and so it's like hard for me to come to terms with that after that, I injected CRISPR DNA, the first human to modify or try to modify their cells with CRISPR. It was hard. Nowadays, I go into it understanding that, and I definitely take that into account and weigh its impact on the thing I'm going to do, because I understand that there's people who will try to copy what I'm doing, or there could be potential negative consequences from the thing I'm doing, and I try to be cognizant of it. It's hard. I just want to do what I want to do. And it's, you just want to live your life, but it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, once people do start listening to you and maybe trying things that you're trying, suddenly it becomes a question of, is this something that I should do publicly, or should I try it privately and then, maybe tell people later if it worked or not, or yeah, I think it's a very interesting place for you to be. I don't envy you.
It's complicated because
yeah.
it was like there was a time when I could just do whatever I wanted. Nobody cared, and I could post it on Facebook. And there's a lot of stuff, if you look into my past, that I did do before all this stuff, before journalists followed me and wrote about me and all this stuff. And it was I enjoyed it, and it's become completely different. I'm not saying I don't enjoy it now. It's just become really different. It's now for public consumption. And it makes it different. It makes it interesting.
But is there also, I mean, trying to take biohacking kind of into the mainstream and make it something that is for everybody's consumption, as opposed to, the fringe hackers who want to try something extreme or do something extreme. I mean, if you want to have, 1 million, 2 million, 3 million garage kitchen biohackers, suddenly you're talking to mainstream America, right?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah, it's so complicated. It's because especially as you progress through these things and reaching people and reaching different levels of people, it's also like the way you present it, and that changes also. When I'm talking about this stuff to you or to a friend, it's totally different than if I'm speaking to 100 people or 1,000 people or whatever. Yeah, and it's just, because the reason you probably got into science and I got into science is just because, I thought it was cool and I liked doing it,
This is fun. Oh, I get to ask questions and try and work things out. Awesome. Great. I get to work with birds. Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
Wait, I have to slice up their brains? Well, that's cool too. Kind of. Okay.
Kind of. I have to chop off their head first.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Maybe not as cool as I first thought. Okay. There's definitely that.
It's tough. I mean, it doesn't matter what you do, though. You're always going to be set with these decisions in your life where it's just like, I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. I don't know what the wrong answer is. I'm just trying to do my best to be a human and live my life.
Yeah.
And that's hard sometimes,
Yeah. Yeah, it is hard, especially when you do have an audience suddenly. And what do you want?
All I really want to do is teach people. And that's, I get a lot of criticism from academia, especially, they're just like, oh, this guy wants attention and all this stuff.
But
and I've had friends that I've known for 10 years, went to PhD together, spent a lot of time with them, who've just turned their backs on me and been really mean to me and all this other stuff, because of this public person that's displayed by the media. And it's hard. It's hard because all I really want to do is teach people. All I really want to do is people to learn science and do science myself and have fun doing it. And the fact that it gets construed to be this evil, crazy thing that I'm some attention seeker and all this other stuff, it's just but yeah, I just want to teach people science.
You've been in a bunch of documentaries, not just having articles written about you, but I've seen you on Netflix.
Yeah. I've seen you on Netflix.
I've been on Netflix too, yeah. No. But in these documentaries, do you feel like your story's getting told? Do you feel like it's coming across well, or do you feel, or maybe it doesn't matter what you feel, what kind of responses have you gotten?
It's never you. You know, that's the thing. It's like, obviously, as human beings, we're really complex. And trying to portray anybody in any way, the only thing you can do it is super simplistic. And so it becomes really complicated. And especially, you know, I always run into this thing where it's like, it's this tough battle with the media because the media wants to portray you. You know, there's even a New York Times article that was written. It was funny, and it was about like biohacking and other stuff. And they mentioned me in there, and they didn't put doctor or PhD or whatever before or after mine, which I don't usually care about or anything like that. But then you read the article, and every other scientist in there, they put it in there, and you're like, oh God, this is like for their narrative, right? Like they're trying to make me see like some renegade guy who didn't have any, you know, training or anything like that, to fit their narrative. I even talked to them about it, and they just didn't change it. It's crazy because there's this narrative that you know has to be fit, right? It just doesn't work. Like things need a story. If you do a documentary, you need a story. You can't just be like, here are some people talking like nobody. I mean, there's some documentaries like that, but they're really boring. Like you need something to happen. You need these characters to be heroes or villains or something like that. And so you always get, you know, stuck in this little hole.
What character are you? How do they want to portray you? Yeah.
What character are you in the story? And there's a new documentary coming out, actually, on October 30th on Showtime that I'm in, about biohackers. But it's tough because it's not me, obviously, but it is me, right? But it's just like small bits and pieces of me that are, you know, cut up for the audience.
Yeah, it's also whatever happens to have been caught during that certain filming period, and you know, it's a snapshot.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's really hard because you also really have to trust these documentary people, because, you know, I've had crews that'll follow me around for like 8 hours a day, and there's no way you can be on film 8 hours a day and just like always be on. Like, you know, you're going to do something or say something or mess up or look dumb.
At the end of the day, you find yourself locking yourself in the bathroom with that bottle of whiskey. No.
There's no two ways about it. And that's the thing is that, like, so you really have to trust that they have the best intentions in mind, and they're not going to take, you know, that time after, you know, at midnight when you were still filming and you're exhausted and you said something really stupid and they wanted to put that in because it made their film better. Yeah. That's just hard because some of these people you don't even know at all. So you're just like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to trust you.
Well, hopefully your trust ends up good for this new documentary. And
I'm sure it'll be great, but people should check it out. Showtime. It's called Citizen Bio.
Cool.
October 30th. Yeah. Halloween. So I'm wondering if they made it like a little Halloween feel or something. I don't know.
Maybe. Making those zombies. Gaurav Sharma in the chat room wants to know how you deal with conspiracy theory, anti-government wackos that your work probably attracts.
Oh gosh. I don't want to actually talk about some like these things on here because people might be listening, and I've definitely had some serious threats and other crazy things, and it's just like I think anybody who attracts a certain amount of attention, you're gonna get some crazy. I exist on that boundary between like weird, interesting, and weird, crazy. You know? So you get like probably more weird, crazy than weird, interesting. The weird, crazy, sometimes it's, you know, a little much, and you get, you know, threat. People think you're like part of government conspiracies and stuff, and like you get death threats and all this crazy stuff, and it's just like, I like I run a small business. I'm just some guy living in an apartment in Oakland. Like, it's now I just try to avoid it. I'm all for a good conspiracy theory. Don't get me wrong, but I just have to avoid that stuff because it attracts the wrong type of attention in people and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, do you try to reason with people, or do you you're like, I've got some radar. I've got some radar, and I'm just gonna say thank you very much, and then
exactly. Even that, you can't sometimes because then people want to respond. It's just
difficult.
I've learned the action of no action a lot in my life, which is just you got to let things go. You don't know who this person is. You're probably not going to help them or save them. You're not a trained therapist or anything like that. You just kind of need to let this go, and if you can diffuse the situation if it needs to be diffused, but otherwise just like block this person, remove yourself from the situation as much as possible. It's just there's no. Yeah, I'm not a trained therapist. Like I'm not gonna do the correct thing. I've actually looked that up because I've had some people send me some crazy stuff, like people who will say they're gonna commit suicide or something, and you're like, what do you say to somebody who says they're gonna commit suicide? And you're like, type that into Google. That's when you know it's gone too far, and you're just like,
you shouldn't be talking to me about that. You should be talking to somebody else.
But like, what do you do? So that's like so heavy. What do you do if somebody sends you a message like that? You're just like,
that's a lot.
Yeah, you're just like,
it's a lot to take.
Do I not if I don't respond, what if they're serious? Like, no, don't send me messages like that. Like, I will not respond. I won't. Yeah. I don't respond to those anymore. Sorry.
Yeah, you can't be responsible for that.
And it's just like things have gotten out of hand, and government conspiracies though. Aliens, I love them.
Yeah. So, Identity 4 in the chat room says, so you're not a lizard person? Sure.
I know.
Could be. Who knows? Yeah.
I was actually from a Mark Zuckerberg harem of lizard children. He's my terrifying. Lizard dad.
Lizard dad.
Did you know snakes have 2 penises?
I think Blair must have told me that at one point.
I wonder if it's lizards also, but like, yeah, that's just so weird. They're like animals that have 2 penises. I didn't know that.
Bifurcated.
Yeah.
Bifurcated. Oh my goodness.
That's how you know. I'm just saying. If you think somebody's a lizard person, pull down their pants and check.
There's always a way. I need some empirical evidence.
You will not end up in jail for that at all.
No.
Don't do that. I'm just joking. Don't do that. Kids, if you're listening, it's not the correct
thing.
Don't
do that. Yeah, that's good. Tell me about the ODIN. What's going on at the ODIN right now? Are you doing classes still? Are you just are you selling products? What are you doing at the ODIN?
Yeah, the ODIN, it's my company. We sell biohacking / genetic engineering, molecular biology, science supplies for, as cheap as we can sell them to people and still stay in business. Because we believe in just getting science out there, getting people doing this stuff. Because like you said, I just love when I get that feeling that like, this seems really sci-fi. Like, wow. I just love that feeling. So I just want to like help build it. I want things to be more I want to just like walk into some random person's house and them, be like doing science. And I don't, it'd just be like, what do you do? Like, what? There are random people that I don't even know doing science. That's crazy. Yeah. But we got online classes that are, pre-recorded because I'm lazy and I don't like to do live classes.
Because you're smart and efficient with your time. Let's think of it that way. There we go.
Exactly. But it's great, we got a lot of stuff for anything you're interested in doing, from engineering human cells to bacteria, yeast, doing, PCR tests. You could figure out ways. I know people have used similar supplies to like try to run tests for COVID and stuff like that, buy kits online. Not saying that you should do that. It's probably not the best way to figure out if you have coronavirus, but, it opens up so many doors just learning how to do this. It's really cool and crazy. Yeah, we have a great community developing around all this stuff, doing genetic engineering on all types of organisms. Yeah, plants you're looking at now.
Yeah, so what is the plants? What is that there? These are compounds.
Yeah, they're chemicals. So
Yeah.
plants, the way you work with and genetically modify plants, a lot of it's hormones.
Okay.
Yeah, plants are really hormone based. That's what tells them to like put down their roots, grow shoots, like do a lot of different stuff. So, if you want to work with plants, genetically modify plants, hormones is the thing. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, 2,4-D is actually, it's really interesting. It's actually what I think is the main component of Roundup. What Roundup actually does is when you spray it on the plant, it starts de-differentiating the cells. I think I got this correct, but I could be making up. It de-differentiates the cells so that they just start forming like weird tumors and the cells go crazy and they all die. So that's like why it's a weed killer. You can spray it on like any plant and he'll basically just like freak out and just be like, I don't know what to do. I'm like de-differentiating and yeah, it kills them. But what you can do is you can use it to form what they call a callus, which is like a de-differentiated mass of cells, which then you could grow into a whole plant, right? Because they're like stem cells. So at certain concentrations, you can actually just get some stem cells to grow into plants and stuff.
So instead of just killing the plant, you're harvesting its cells to make new ones.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, no, I mean, like I said, we had a hard time with the coronavirus, but we're kicking it. We're surviving. I got a bunch of great workers, Pete and Jill and Gabe, and yeah, it's we're doing it. We're making it. I can't believe we survived this coronavirus thing. Honestly, like I thought we were just gonna totally go out of business. The fact that we didn't, I'm just like I was planning for the company to go out of business a few months ago.
Do you think
because
people
all our
started
school orders dried up and everything like that, right? Like all schools shut down. We lost.
Right. So schools that were buying from you, they were not able to anymore.
A ton of schools were buying and they just, stopped because schools shut down, and still now. And yeah, the community really supported us and bought stuff, and people bought stuff, and yeah.
Are people taking classes more?
Yeah, that's our most popular thing is people take the classes. Our classes, we have a special Facebook group, which, I'm actually on and I answer people's questions, which is crazy. And, it's like our own private, like, you get your own private class tutor. You get people to answer your questions, including me, who help you out to just like help you along the process of learning genetic engineering and biotechnology.
Got office hours, basically, where you can go
talk
to people.
I mean, nowadays, shoot. My office hours are when I pick up my phone and when I put it down.
I'm here.
Most of the day
I'm
would
connected.
be terrible. I try again to shut it off or just like not answer emails or things like that after a certain time. But you know how it goes sometimes.
Yeah. Goldazator says, "Can I sequence DNA? I want my ACTG in a big file." I think it's probably better for you to go to another company, but could you get like a...
We don't do that, and I would recommend against doing that for yourself right now. I think genetic privacy is going to be a big thing. I mean, it should be a big thing. I had my DNA arrayed with 23andMe. Gosh, we're talking like 2008, 2009.
I think I had mine read that far back also. Yeah.
And I just thought, wow, this is so cool and stuff like that. And, a couple years ago, I, closed my account and asked them to delete it. Obviously, they're not going to delete it.
They're like, no, this is data. You
I
gave it
know.
to
And that's the
us.
thing. Like with all these companies, they're basically commoditizing your genetics and your genes. And like, I don't think we realize the implications of that right now because it's just such a brand new technology. It's probably like when they first started social security numbers and people were just like, whatever. And nowadays people are like, oh, don't just ever mention your social security or email, write it down, ever, nothing. Right. And, because it's really valuable. It has a lot of implications for your life. And I think genetics is going to be the same way. And most of these companies, the reason that they're able to sequence your DNA for so cheap or whatever else is because they commoditize. They turn it into data and they use it and they make money off of it and they can do whatever they want with it. And you may not want that in the future. That might be something that's really important to you and your family. So unless you have a very specific reason, like you think you have an illness and you want to identify the genetic cause of it, I would suggest against sequencing your genetics. Obviously, it's fun, and I hate to be such a downer, and it's okay to do. You're probably not going to destroy your life, but
probably not. Yeah. But where is your information going to be used? Is it going to be used for pharmaceutical development?
Future, I don't even know.
The future, what's it going to be used for? We don't know. There was an interesting use. A friend of mine took her ancestry DNA and sent it to a website called Protease or something. Let me see if I can find the link here. It was, but basically it's a database that cross-references all the mutations, the single nucleotide polymorphisms against published research, and Promethease. That's what Promethease, and it basically tells you, like, gives you a list of all the research, like, cross-referenced for your mutations for inflammatory disease. So you know that you're predisposed to inflammatory autoimmune diseases, and suddenly you're like, she's posting all this information. She's like, and I found out this about myself, and I found out this about myself, and this, blah, blah, blah. And my ancestors probably survived because of malaria, but because they survived the malaria because they had the genetic mutation, it predisposes me for this now. And it just made the whole, she's able to put all these things together in a very interesting way. So I don't know, it's so interesting. The access to the information in our genes is fascinating, but yeah.
On the IRC chat, Shuber is talking about criminal. I think that's the scariest thing, is that, like, once somebody has your DNA information and it becomes part of any database, FBI, whatever, you could potentially be flagged for committing a crime. And like these things, oh gosh, the code is 13 alleles that they use. They don't even sequence these genes, right? They're just alleles, right? So they just look at like copy number variants in these alleles using PCR, and you're just like, oh gosh, like, oh man, like the fact that you could be matched to something like this, you do not want to be part of one of those databases and accidentally get matched. Like, so DNA evidence is not what they say it is.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, alleles. Oh no, like what? I was just in my house and all my family can verify it. You're arrested. You're going to jail anyway. Happened to so many people. I watch too many Netflix shows, I guess.
Yeah, maybe we all need to copyright our DNA, as Thunder Beaver in the chat room is
just
saying.
Like,
right?
I tend to be more libertarian on all these things, so don't mind me, but like, I tend to be like, especially in my life, I don't have a lot of privacy. I guess some guy just like showed up at my place of business today. which is fine if you're watching this. I appreciate that you enjoy the stuff I do, but it's also like, it's like, yeah, I don't get that privacy freedom. I had somebody who sent me a text message who said, the YouTube video you uploaded, it has your license plate and your address in it. And I was like, how did you get my phone number to send this text message? I think I'm more scared about that than the license plate and address being on the YouTube. Like, it's funny. Yeah, no. So
there's information out there. If people know how to look for that,
whatever privacy I can get, I'll take that.
Keep your privacy. Golden Zener says DMV. Probably got it from the DMV. Yeah. So genetic sequencing at home is still not really happening.
You don't need to. Here's the thing: is that yeah. The thing is that companies do it so well and so inexpensively that you really don't need to do it at home. It's one of those things that we're at the point right now where it's become so I don't know, just widespread. Anybody can buy a machine. You just have to invest the initial $50,000 or $100,000 or whatever you want to invest, and then you could do it really easily. So there's just so many companies that do this type of thing. It's generally not worth it to try to do it yourself, unless for an intellectual exercise. There's a lot of cool things you can work out for that. But otherwise, pay the people who do it for a living, and it's not that you're not going to save much money trying to do it yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to tell people anything else? I'm gonna bring our show to a close. Anything you want to share with them? More secrets, phone numbers?
More secrets. I mean, somebody found it, I'm sure. The thing is, I try to be really open. I have my email online and all this other stuff. It's like, gosh darn it. No, I don't. This was a great chat. I love chatting with you as always. Yeah. Feel free to reach out to me. I can't say I'll always respond to people, but I'm really easy to find online. Yeah, so feel free to reach out to me. I try to be open and talk about things with people, and I'm interested in people's points of view. So, yeah.
Very cool. Thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. I really appreciate it. I know you've been tired.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's been a overwhelming year for everybody.
Yeah, it just gets added to. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. And if you want to help TWIS grow, get a friend to subscribe today. I do have one letter from the mailbag. This Week in Science question from Paul Lombardi, PhD, Associate Professor of Music Theory and Composition. It says, last week you brought a story about how genetic variants can determine whether we can smell certain things such as fish and cinnamon. In my house, we eat a lot of vegetables, including grilled asparagus. After eating asparagus, my urine has a distinct odor. I heard that some people's urine doesn't have that distinct odor after eating asparagus. A friend of ours told a story about sharing a bathroom with someone who couldn't smell that odor after eating asparagus, and this leads me to wonder if some people process asparagus in a way that their urine doesn't smell, or if some people are incapable of smelling that distinct odor. Does science have an answer to this question? Yes, Paul, science does have an answer, and you're right in both respects. It's multiple genes involved, and there is a gene that makes your pee smell, and there's another gene that influences whether or not you can smell the aspara-pee smell. It's true. Olfactory genes and, I guess, asparagus metabolism genes. Would that be specific? Yes. But yes, science does have that answer. It is definitely genetically controlled, and There are two. There are multiple genes involved. So yes, you are onto something there. So you may want to figure out whether or not you are one of those people who is an Aspera-P super smeller, or whether it actually is, whether there are other factors involved. Thank you for writing in. And if anyone else has a question out there, feel free to write in, Kirsten at thisweekinscience.com, or send us a message on Facebook. All right, time for shout outs to everybody. I have shout outs galore. Thank you to Fada for helping with the social media and the show descriptions every week. Thank you also to Gord for manning the chat room. Thank you to Identity4 for recording our show. Josiah, thank you for joining us today. Really wonderful. And if anybody wants to check out the ODIN and those offerings, the website there is the hashtag ODIN, not hashtag. It's a hyphen. It starts with an the hyphen ODIN, ODIN.com. And I would also like to thank the Burroughs Welcome Fund and also our Patreon sponsors for their generous support of this show. Thank you to Chris Wozniak, Dave Bunn, Vegard Schefstad. He wrote a very nice letter this week to help me figure out how to pronounce his name. Hal Snyder, Donathan Stiles, a.k.a. Don Stylo, John Scioli, Guillaume, John Lee, Ali Coffin, Maddie Perrin, Gaurav Sharma, Mike Shoemaker, Sarah Forfarld, Donald Mundis, Stephen Alberon, Daryl Myshak, Stu Pollock, Andrew Swanson, Fred S104, Corinne Benton, Sky Luke, Paul Ronovich, Ben Bignell, Kevin Reardon, Noodles, Jack, Brian Carrington, Matt Bass, Joshua Fury, Sean and Nina Lamb, John McKee, Greg Riley, Mark Hessenflow, Gene Tellier, Steve Leisman, a.k.a. Zima, Ken Hayes, Howard Tan, Christopher Rappin, Richard, Brendan Minish, Melizond, Johnny Gridley, Flying Out, Richard Porter, Christopher Dreyer, Mark Mazzaros, Artyom, Greg Briggs, John Atwood, Melania is a Russian super spy, Rudy Garcia, Dave Wilkinson, Rodney Lewis, Paul, Matt Sutter, Philip Shane, Kurt Larson, Greg Landon, Mountain Sloth, Jim Drapeau, Sarah Chavis, Alex Wilson, John Ratnaswamy, Sue Doster, Jason Olds, David Neighbor, Matthew Litwin, Eric Knapp, E.O., Kevin Parachan, Aaron Luthen, Steve DeBell, Bob Calder, Marjorie, Paul Stanton, Paul Disney, Patrick Pecoraro, Ben Rothig, Gary S., Tony Steele, Ulysses Adkins, Brian Condren, Jason Roberts, and Dave Friedel. Thank you for your support of TWIS. And if you are interested in supporting us on Patreon, you can head over to twis.org and click that Patreon link. On next week's show, Justin and Blair will be back. And I know they're going to be sad they missed this interview tonight. And we'll be back live Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific time, broadcasting live from our YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch channels and from twist.org/live. If you are not listening to this as a podcast right now, you can just look for This Week in Science wherever podcasts are found. And if you liked the show, you can also ask your friends to subscribe as well. For more information on anything that you've heard here today, links and show notes are going to be available on our website, twist.org. Let me say that one more time, twist.org. You can also sign up for our newsletter that we send occasionally when we get around to it. We really do try. You can contact us directly. Email me, Kirsten at thisweekinscience.com, Justin at twistminin@gmail.com, Blair at blairbaz@twist.org. Just put TWIS in the subject line so emails don't get spam filtered into oblivion. You can also ping us on Twitter, where we are Twist Science, Dr. Kiki Jacksonfly, and Blair's Menagerie. We love your feedback. If there's a topic you'd like us to cover or a suggestion for an interview, please let us know. We're going to be back here next week and really hope that you'll be back again to join us again for more great science news. And if you learned anything from tonight's show, remember, it's all in your head. Let's see if I can do all the things.
That was creepy.
This Week in Science.
Doing all the things!
This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth, and I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 I've got one disclaimer, and it shouldn't be news, that what I say may not represent your views, but I've done the calculations and I've got a plan. If you listen to the science, you may just yet understand that we're not trying to threaten your philosophy. We're just trying to save the world from jeopardy. Jeopardy. And This Week in Science is coming your way. So everybody listen to everything we say, and if you use our method instead of rolling a die, we may rid the world of toxoplasma gondii. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 Got a laundry list of items I want to address, from stopping global hunger to dredging Loch Ness. I'm trying to promote more rational thought, and I'll try to answer any question you've got. So how can I ever see the changes I seek when I can only set up shop 1 hour a week? This Week in Science is coming your way. You better just listen to what we say, and if you've learned anything from the words that we've said, then please just remember it's all in your head. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in 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 Science.
That's the end of that. We did that. We're still on the air, but we did that. It's the post show, people. But we don't have to have a post show. Because we just talked for like 2 hours.
It was great, though.
Yeah, it's been really, really great to get to talk with you. It's been a year.
Yeah, I don't know.
Aside from social media.
Oh, yeah, I guess BioHack the Planet.
Mm-hmm.
This is when we saw each other last time. Yeah, that was pretty nice. I know. I was going to go to that thing in Portland, but I never did or whatever.
But we canceled the in-person, so
we
went totally virtual. We ended up going virtual, but yes.
Okay, so, I made the right decision.
You made the right decision to not come to Portland for the conference. Yeah. There would have been no conference. It would have been like, that's nice. You can stand on the sidewalk and I'll shout at you. Because we don't know what's going on.
Oh, yeah, totally. Was it in March or February?
Mm-hmm. End of March.
Oh, end of March, yeah. Yeah, I flew to D.C. in February. That was like the last time I flew, in February, D.C.
Yeah.
Late February, and then it was just like everything canceled. Whoa.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, I went to a conference. I went to AAAS in Seattle in mid-February, like around Valentine's Day, and did that for a nice long weekend, which was awesome. But then that was it. Came home and I had all these other plans, and we were doing our conferencing, and I was like, I'm going to do all these things. I'm going to go down to LA in the beginning of March, and I'm going to do this film festival, and I'm going to do that. And it was like,
how about it? Oh, by the way, I'm moving to Austin in February, so
you're
definitely
moving
come
to
to South by
Austin?
Southwest.
Oh my God, yes.
Come out there, South by Southwest. It's so great.
I'm gonna call you up and be like, so Do you have a place in your house?
They're like, yes, because houses in Austin cost real normal people prices.
Yeah.
In Oakland, it's like, here's this one bedroom for $750,000.
I keep wondering if everything, I mean, so many people have been moving out of the Bay Area recently.
Oh, it's
like,
our
are rents
so they sent us a
crashing or
new,
things?
they sent us a new lease for our apartment, and they dropped the rent price $400. I never in my
That's
life had
amazing.
experienced a rent drop, much less
Wow.
$400 a month. Like, I was just like, whoa, there are a lot of people. And I mean, every weekend you just see moving trucks everywhere.
Wow.
Yeah, people are just fleeing because nothing's open. I think it's still like one of the most locked down areas in the U.S. So like nothing is open, and everybody's stuck in these tiny apartments that they're paying ridiculous rents for. They're just like, I'm gone. I can work remote. I'm going someplace where it's cheaper.
Yeah.
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 That's
I
exactly what
can't
we're
even
thinking.
imagine. Yeah, people, I mean, and so many people in the city that do work at places maybe down in the peninsula. So they're in their little tiny apartment, and then they get on a bus or they sit in traffic on the freeway, and they go down to, or they used to go down to a campus somewhere, Google, Facebook, Apple, wherever, and then, they stay there all day, work, and then go back to their little tiny cubicle apartment. And yeah, no.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be really interesting to see how things change after the coronavirus thing. It's gonna be really interesting because it's not like you can't just snap back to normal. So it's just, yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
And this, I mean, this isn't gonna be done. It's not going to be done this year. It's going to be next year, maybe the year after, that we really start seeing it end.
I have no idea.
And yeah, I just can't. I'm just sitting here like,
I have no idea. I thought it would have been over already.
no.
Much less,
Yeah.
going to 2021 and longer, right? Like, I mean, there's just so many industries. Just like, I know South by Southwest is trying to do a virtual version this year, but it's like just the effects that has in the economy of Austin and other stuff is crazy, right? It's the impacts of these things we're gonna be a little bit before we see all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't even think, I mean, I've had so many conversations with people who are like, I don't need to go back and work someplace in an office again, or I don't need to do it every day. Like, I can work from home. Why not? If banks can figure out how to make it possible for their employees to work securely with bank information from home, then, anybody can work from home.
Exactly.
And everything, everything's robots now too, so it's like gonna be robots doing all of the maintenance work, and and then people calling in, and it'll be like robots with people faces talking to each other.
Yeah, it's really accelerated a lot of stuff. I mean, there's so much that we've just learned, not just like medically, but socially, and from the coronavirus, even legislatively, bureaucratically, so much we've learned about so many different things. The previous fastest vaccine was 4 years. Took to get approved by the FDA.
Yep.
And so, somebody's going to get one approved in less than a year or get an EUA or something. And that's what do you go back to after that? It's going to be interesting to see. A lot of stuff is going to be interesting to see, like how people try to shift back, or if they do shift back, or if they don't shift back, or like what actually happens.
It's all people and the different, I don't know. I love people, but when it comes to the economy, I think it's driven by greed, mostly.
100%.
So,
Oh yeah, capitalism, great and terrible.
Yeah,
At the same
and
time.
as much as it would be
So
great
bad.
if it were okay, because people start going back to work more, then there's more money in the economy. And, you think of like just the trading goods and the just kind of doing business kind of part of it. Like, that's great. That works fabulously. But then when you start thinking of like the bigger forces at play, where some people might not want it to go back to normal because it's benefiting them, and some forces can't wait for it to get back to normal, and they're going to push really hard to go back to it.
Pandemic, right? People make billions, and that's just
And then there are people who do the stock shorting and do all the futures. Like there are people who thrive off of the uncertainty. So
you're telling me you wouldn't kill somebody for 10 billion?
No, what?
They put a gun in your hand and put a random person in front of you and said, "Here's $10 billion. All you gotta do is pull the trigger. Nobody will know."
Nope. I would know.
I have no idea, but all I know is that, there's a lot of people who probably have to answer that question, and a lot of people who choose the money because, a lot of suffering and death, and a lot of people making a lot of money off of it.
I just can't help but think, though, like, if you're really watching, the people who are really paying attention, I think this pandemic has really highlighted what people can do well together. How when we really work hard at something, like the speed at which science is happening, because money and resources, people, time, money, all that's getting put in those places.
For sure.
Like, it's happening so fast, and discoveries about this virus are just like boop, 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 boop. Like, so many papers being published, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing. And we, like you said, we're going to get a vaccine faster probably than any other vaccine we've gotten before.
Yeah.
And can we take this and can we apply this to climate change? Can we apply this to changing the way that we manufacture goods? Can we apply this to all sorts of
most
processes?
Drugs take 10 years to get approved by the FDA. The average timeline for a drug to get approved by the FDA is 10 years. So, how does this affect that? Just as simple as that. But yeah, it's just the one thing it's also shown, though, is that we can't work together as a world, which is terrible. You think everybody would be like, "Oh, there's a pandemic. Let's all pitch in and work together." There's 50 different vaccines from 50 different countries,
which is ridiculous. I mean, there's a part of it where it's like, okay, not one company is going to be able to produce one vaccine for everybody. Like, there's going to have to be some kind of sharing, but because this is all money and capitalism, it's like, my country's going to get there. Russia's like, I don't care if we haven't tested this. We're going to test it on everybody just by making it available. Let's make that happen.
Hey,
Let's do this. We're number one.
This what makes me worried is when the aliens come visit, because they're going to go and they're going to try to attack, I don't know, the UK. And everybody's just going to be like, destroy the UK. We don't really care about it that much. They're not coming for us yet, so we're cool.
Right. Yeah. We're fine.
We can't work together as a society, and I think it's really terrible right now that all there is just a lot of conflict, and we need to figure out how we can all work together. We need to figure out how we can break down these social, class, race, whatever barriers, and just because it's not like, if this was actually a really bad pandemic, not saying it's not bad, but I mean, let's say it wiped out 10, 20% of the world's population or something.
Right.
We'd all be sitting here fighting with each other still. Nothing would have got done. It's we need to do better as human beings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know a lot of very wonderful people. Why can't we all just get along?
I don't know.
I know there are good people. There are lots of good people doing good work in the world. Yeah.
Maybe we should just whiskey, make it available. I don't know.
I think I like this plan personally.
Legalize marijuana in all countries. Get happy people somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yep. How do you get happy people? That's right. Weed and whiskey. Yes. No.
I'm not saying it's the wrong answer.
Identity 4 says, make Earth Scotch again. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
I would not be disappointed. I would not be disappointed in that.
Yeah, I mean,
Love
it's
that.
just crazy too. I mean, people in the audience, some people are parents. You're a parent. I'm a parent. Like, we're looking at this world that our kids are going to be coming into. And
Oh gosh, I'm just like,
I mean, I'm partly responsible for this mess. I mean, even though I'm not like, but I'm a part of this, and I'm a part of this older, like, middle-aged generation that didn't get things to change when we were younger, and now I'm like, okay, all right, gotta do some work. Can't just put it all on the
our
shoulders
time
of
is
the
yet to
kids.
come. Our time is yet to come.
Is it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the one thing I'm really concerned about though is like social media, and not like as much, people are like, oh, likes and all that stuff, which is, I get it. But I think it's just more that there's like so much misinformation and propaganda, and
Yep.
there's so much polarization out there that it's oh gosh, I mean, I try my best not to use social media nowadays, post something and maybe interact with one or two people, but otherwise it's like, gosh, it's
Yeah.
so polarized. It's so just like boom. And, it's realizing that my children are going to use this someday, and I'm going to have to convince them that, like, don't believe everything on there. Like,
don't go there.
you don't trust, random articles that people should, like, I'm going to have to teach them all this stuff and make them extremely skeptical of all the information that's fed on there and all this. And that's just like,
Yeah.
wow,
Well, I mean, it's not just literacy, it's media literacy. It's
Yeah.
digital. In my son's school, they've actually had instruction in digital citizenship, and they are starting to teach digital media literacy, but
oh, wow, that's
yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah, it is good, but he has a lot more to learn. He's pretty on it. We talk about it a lot because I'm on social media all the time.
Yeah.
But he's good. I was putting him to bed last night, and I was like, okay, good night, and then I like leaned back and started scrolling through Twitter, and he's going to sleep, and he like looked up at me. He goes, "Are you on Twitter?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Don't do that. It's not good for you." I'm like, "You're right. Okay." I'll
Yeah, my
read a
daughter's
book
2.5,
instead.
and she'll always be like, no, don't look at your phone. No, don't look at your phone. And I'm like, oh,
Don't look at
no,
me.
don't. But it's the truth. It's like, it's not necessarily bad, like social media isn't necessarily bad. There's a lot of good things
Right.
about it. It allows you to connect with people and all these other stuff. But
I do a lot of that, yeah.
but also, for me, and I'm sure for you, where you have an audience and people who want to interact with you, there's a lot of negatives, and it's a lot of trolls and stuff like that, and a lot of people who just out there looking for, I don't know what, excitement, fun, torment, release some anger.
I think there's probably a bit of that anger release or like frustration, and people are like, I don't know what to do, and it's just easy to take it out online, and so it just makes it this social media powder keg. Gaurav, I did finish my taxes. Thank you.
All right.
Last week I ended the show and I was like, I still need to go do my taxes because it was like the extension deadline was coming. Yeah, it took me a while. I did it. I did finally finish my taxes. Carol Ann in the YouTube chat says there's a Norwegian word for when people come together to do something for the community. It's called dugnad. Dugnad? Dugnad. Dugnad.
Do good?
It sounds like do good. Yeah. Dugnad. We need more of that. More community stuff. More do goods. More Dugnads.
Yeah, I mean that's one of
Yes.
the reasons we want to move to Austin. Like a smaller city, smaller neighborhoods and stuff like that. Is that a lot more community? Just a community. We've broken all the coronavirus lockdown rules, and my family has hung out every Saturday since the lockdown started because it's just my family. Like we have to see each other, we have to hang out. My brother and his sister and their 3 kids, and my mom and my other brother, and it's just like
Yeah.
you need that community. It's like that important to us, that. And we had talks with my mom and stuff like that about, like there's risk and all this stuff. And she's just like, whatever, I'm strong. That's my mom,
But she wants to be with you. She wants to see
Yeah.
you.
She's just like, I'm strong.
She wants
It's
to
like,
see her
of course,
grandchild too. Yeah.
You survived a lot. I know you are strong.
But I mean, there's a certain there's a certain part of it that it's also like you've got, these are the people that you hang out with. So it's kind of like your bubble.
Oh, totally. Yeah,
Right?
totally. But yeah, it's definitely something that matters a lot. I think there's some people like that, and I think that's one of the issues with the lockdown and stuff. I mean, the person you're probably most likely to get coronavirus from is a family member, right, or somebody you live with.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the big problems is like, some people need community. They have community. It's really hard to like take that away from people. You could lock them up, and they'd still try to find a way to form community with other people and throw away the key. Like they'd talk to the guard, they'd do something, try to form some sort of community. It's who we are as humans. And yeah, that's one of the tough parts is it's just, you can't perfectly not interact with nobody for a long period of time.
Yeah. No. I couldn't do that. We have another family that we hang out with that, we don't have family up here. So
Yeah,
they're kind of our family, and we go
totally.
and hang out with them on the weekends. And that's kind of, we're like, okay, this is what we're going to do and how we're all going to support each other and make it through this and not, I'm
Try
not
to
going
be
to
your
live
own
in
little bubble.
Yeah. And I'm not just going to live in my basement, me and my cats, yelling at my child, taking a broom, hitting the floor.
We're in like Oakland, I don't know, 1,000 square foot apartment or something with 2 kids. Like, oosh. What it's like with a child that is in lockdown. Like, it just doesn't,
The kid wants to go outside, and then you're like, I need to get outside.
Yeah. But you like can't go anywhere. You can't go to the park. It's so funny because, there are other, young families and stuff around us, and you go to the park and like all these kids, just running around trying to get the kids to. You can't use the park equipment though. So, but yeah, just all these kids running around because all these parents are just like, I'm stuck in my tiny apartment. Like it's so hard for cities. Like how do you do lockdown in cities? It's just like so tough.
You can't use the park stuff?
No, it's like locked down here. Yeah.
Oh, what?
They weren't allowing us to like use the slides at the park and stuff. So you're like stuck in a city where you can like walk on sidewalks. Nothing's open. You can't use anything at the park. Like you're just like can't go to the beach.
Yeah, the beach was closed too, huh?
Yeah, everything. So it's tough. Yeah, it's been tough. As you can imagine.
Yeah. Yep.
California has been tough. The Bay Area.
That's hard. Yeah.
Yeah, it is
Hot
hard.
Rod is saying, did you hear about the crazy rules for the Christmas season in Cali? I have not.
Yeah, I don't know. Let us know what it is.
Let me know. I don't know about the Christmas rules. I've been trying to figure out. My dad lives in California, and so in the Bay Area, and I've been like trying to figure out. I want to go visit my dad, or I'm trying to get him to come up here or something. I don't know. I have to figure out something.
Yeah, for sure.
Be like, I will isolate for 2 weeks. I mean, I pretty much isolate as it is because I never leave my house, but I will isolate for 2 weeks so that I can either drive down there and visit for the holiday, or he can come up here or something.
Yeah, for sure.
Make it work.
Yeah, I know it's tough. I mean, that's basically what we're all trying to do, is just figure it out and make it work, you know? Like,
oh my gosh.
what can you...
Shubru says, and then my idiot family went to Vegas in the middle of the first spike because they were bored of being locked down. Oh, Shubru. They're waving the red flag in front of the bull.
Vegas was really weird. You know, because that's where we're going to have our conference.
Did you go there to check it out? Or, I mean, since lockdown or anything?
You know, that's where our conference was. So we were following really close what was going on. And it just, you know, they opened up casinos and stuff at like 50%, and, you know, but closed down like restaurant. It was like the rules were really, really, really weird. Obviously because of capitalism, right? They're like, all right, well, casinos get us tax dollars and most of our money, so we can't close casinos
so you
forever.
Can stay open.
It's just ridiculous. You're just like, gosh, Vegas, you're a mess. But I mean, their whole economy is on, like, survives on tourism, right? So it's like, what do you do
when nobody's visiting? And
it's just,
I mean, it's a town that is an entertainment town. I know there's a bunch of stuff there that has been developed in the last 20, 30 years that's more technology or business focused. They've really like been focused on developing like a downtown area and stuff. But I mean, if all that tourist money goes away, then people don't have money to put into the downtown for the whole economy to run. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. So they were just like, whatever. I remember them telling us, they're like, you can still do your like our conference was scheduled for June, and they're like, are you sure you want to cancel your conference? You can still do it. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, come on. I had to fight with them to get a refund. Like, they're like, like, there's a freaking pandemic going on. What do you want me to do? Like,
yeah, I think our venue, we pushed it off, and I think we've pushed it off again, so it's kind of just rescheduled, so they still have our deposit.
Oh, yeah.
Which we probably won't they have our deposit, but yeah.
Yeah, we sold tickets and stuff, and that was just like, you know, like, I'm going to have to refund these tickets or something, and like...
that's hard.
Yeah. That was a tough one.
So many events. Like, I heard speaking of South by Southwest, like they almost went out of business. Like they had to fire a whole bunch of people, and they were doing what they could.
They make like probably $100 million off that conference.
Yeah.
City of Boston probably makes, you know, more.
Yeah.
It's like 50,000 people descend on that town for like a month. Like, gosh, the effects of that are just astonishing. And I'm sure it's not the only place that's affected by that, but yeah.
Yeah. No.
This is scary, you know? It's just like our economy is somehow being propped up and nobody knows how. Wasn't that $1,200 stimulus check? Let me tell you that.
No, it was not. We'll give you a stimulus check.
$1,200 was supposed to last you 9 months.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, I took $100 a month and applied it to my rent, and it kept me going for a whole year. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens. This is crazy town. It's crazy town. We are officially living in crazy town, and it's being propped up by people who never stop working anymore because they have no separation of work and life and their work-life balance because everybody's working from home. And so pretty much it's being propped up by millions of people trying to homeschool and work and who are on the brink of a schizophrenic meltdown. So that's how we're doing.
Whiskey sales are up, though. So we got that going for us.
Yes. If only I were a whiskey maker. That's what I need.
All right. I'm going to take
That's
off.
what I need to be in. Yes. It was so good chatting with you.
Yeah.
Really
As
good.
always. But we have to, we have to hang out in person as friends or something.
I would like that.
It's always weird how you
slip
make friends.
Professional.
Yeah, it's like the only time. It's so funny. I have some friends like that like the only time we get to talk is when it's like on stage at a conference. The only time we get to talk is like when we do a podcast together.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
No.
Busy.
We'll make it. We'll make either someday I will end up in Austin and we will hang out because it'll probably be after you've moved there, or after the pandemic's over, you'll be in Portland. I would like to get you involved in science talk at some point, if possible, because I think you're.
Yeah, totally. I would like to offend everybody there.
I think it would be wonderful.
You're all wrong. Let me tell you how it is.
Let me tell you something. That's right. Yeah. But yes, we will hang out in the real lifetime world. Yeah.
IRL.
That's right. IRL. Faux show. Everybody, thank you so much. I'm checking the chat room right now. So many conversations, people talking about tourism, and yes, Identity 4, it is that time. It is that time. We could buy your wine. That's right. Identity 4 makes wine. That's right.
Oh, yeah.
He made a banana wine, which I'm still very skeptical about that one because
that seems suspicious.
Yep.
Very suspicious.
Still very skeptical about that one. He said it tasted like bananas, which sounds about right. But everyone, thank you so much for joining for another evening of This Week in Science. We'll be back next week. We will have Justin and Blair back. We can talk with Blair about her not science wedding and talk about how her nuptials were. And we'll talk about how Justin enjoyed his traveling on planes in the middle of a pandemic. That could be a comedy skit, actually. It's like comedians in cars, but
oh gosh, but yeah,
people
probably
on
like
planes
5 years,
in a
10 years
pandemic.
from now, they're going to be making fun of it so much.
So much. Oh,
they're going to have so many oh gosh.
All right, come on back next week, everyone. Thank you so much. Really wonderful to see you all in the chat. Really wonderful to have you here watching, and I can't wait to see you again. Good night, or good morning, wherever you are.